Okay, well, good evening or good morning. Welcome to the second webcast for the University of Melbourne Virtual Fair. My name is Stephanie and I've got some special guests with me today. This is Amir and Daniela. Thank you for joining us. They are two research students here at the University of Melbourne. This is the graduate research session. First I'm going to go through a presentation and you'll be able to hear my voice but see the slides. And then after that, we'll have some questions and answers from Amir and Daniela, and then answers from you. So, let's get started. So why do graduate research at the University of Melbourne? Melbourne is the top-ranked university in Australia and is ranked number 34 in the world in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. The ranking is based on teaching, international outlook, industry, income, research and citations. This proves that Melbourne's global reputation is strong and well recognised for high quality research and research training, which is what you'll be doing as a graduate researcher here. Melbourne's academics are also globally engaged and at the forefront of cutting edge research, so you'll be learning from some of the best. At Melbourne, you'll have access to generous scholarships, unique professional development programs and excellent support and collaboration networks, as well as leading researchers and world-class facilities. When we ask our alumni to talk about their experience at Melbourne, most of them say that working with world-leading researchers and the opportunities to present their research at international conferences are the most valuable and rewarding experiences. And hopefully we'll hear firsthand from Daniela and Amir a little later about their experiences studying here. So Melbourne's graduate research community, it's a very strong and diverse one. Students are drawn here from over 100 countries as well as around Australia. It's a dynamic community and there are a vast array of opportunities to get engaged. It's also a community of very high academic achievement and Melbourne graduates are often very well positioned nationally and internationally. There's around 5,000 graduate researchers in a diversity of disciplines here at the university and approximately 1,000 new graduate researchers enrol each year, of which around 400 are international students. So what are the types of graduate research degrees? Well, at Melbourne, we offer 3 different graduate research degrees, and each degree enables you to make an original and distinct contribution to the body of knowledge in your field. You will be guided and supported along the way by a supervisor or sometimes more than one. So the PhD is one of the graduate degrees and it's awarded on a basis of an 80,000 to 100,000 word thesis in which you'll produce an independent research project investigating a specialised topic. Some PhDs may also incorporate coursework and all PhDs are assessed via external examination of the research thesis alone. The Master of Philosophy is the second research degree and it's a more contained version of a PhD, but again it is designed to help you advance skills in carrying out independent and sustained research. So it typically involves study over 1.5 to 2 years. Unlike the PhD, which is normally a minimum of 3. And the thesis in a Master of Philosophy is normally between 30 and 40,000 words. And the Masters by Research is our final one, which differs from the Master of Philosophy by allowing for about 30% of the program to be coursework and it has a shorter thesis component. So this program is available in a diverse variety of disciplines and our website has a range of different information on this for you. As an international student, to meet visa requirements, you must study this program full-time, whichever one it is that you choose or are fortunate enough to get a place in. And full-time is typically 40 hours per week. So what are your pathways to a research degree here at the university? Normally you are required to have completed a research project or component subject or group of subjects that account for at least 25% of your work in a particular year. So an honours year, for example, which is a 4-year undergraduate degree, or sometimes programs like a postgraduate diploma. Anyone applying from a master's background would need to have undertaken a research component which accounts for at least 25% of a 1-year full-time equivalent course. Entry to our programs here at Melbourne is competitive, and applicants who are successful usually exceed the minimum entry requirements, so achieve high and aim high. So what can I tell you about the academic and supervisory support? Well, you'll work under the guidance of and be supported by a supervisor and an advisory committee for the duration of your degree. We want you to receive the best possible supervision, and we value supervisor excellence, so we train our supervisors to achieve that. Should there be any issues along the way, you'll also have the support of additional academic staff within your faculty or department, as well as colleagues and fellow students who can support you. So there's a lot of academic and social support available. And as our PhD guests will share with you shortly, they'll tell you a bit about what it's like to work with their supervisors, so you'll hear from them soon. Just moving on about a bit more about the Melbourne experience. We request your feedback every 2 years in a research survey. Your experiences and opinions matter. Your feedback continually improves the conditions for our researchers, and you can provide ideas about supporting programs, and you can help inform policy development. So we always like to hear from you. In addition, we've got dedicated research services and support staff that will look after you, who can provide support and an abundance of professional development opportunities. It's your degree, but you will not be alone throughout it. You'll have supervisors, departments and people to help you along the way, and we're all here to provide the best possible experience for you. So graduate research is meant to be rewarding, but it's also challenging. I'll just go to the next slide. Pardon me. But it's more than just writing a thesis. There are lots of opportunities available to you beyond the degree itself. Opportunities to build on your research skills and engage with your colleagues and peers around the university from outside and inside your discipline area will be available, as well as opportunities to undertake personal or professional development. So how to become an effective researcher at the university? As you'll discover, and as I've spoken about already, there are many possibilities to assist with your development as a researcher. I won't go into everything that's listed on this slide, but there's orientation normally at the beginning of your degree, and then for those at the end, there's something called the thesis boot camp. Your department supports you too with a whole range of events and programs, inductions, symposiums and conferences, and there are a range of student clubs that you can join too. It's a really vibrant community and one that's great fun to be in, so we hope you make the most of it. So let's get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty, and that's applying for a graduate research degree, which we know can be lengthy. Okay, so it's helpful to start preparing your application well in advance, and these steps are here to help. First, you'll need to identify a potential research topic and then explore which faculty or graduate school could best accommodate this. Secondly, you need to make contact with this faculty or graduate school and confirm the specific entry requirement processes and documentation that's required that you will need to present with your application. Some of the graduate schools and faculties manage this process slightly differently, so you will need to find out from each one that you're interested in applying to what's involved, whether it be a pre-application process, a detailed research proposal, and if you do need to contact a supervisor directly. Speaking of supervisors, it is important that you look and find one that will align to the research topic that you're interested in, because you'll work under the guidance of at least one supervisor throughout your degree. Sometimes you need to find a supervisor prior to submitting your application, and we have a resource called Find an Expert, which is a website that can be helpful in doing this. Otherwise, you can type in relevant keywords to your research area and bring up academics in a field who might be able to supervise you. And then the application form. You can apply for both scholarships and admission in the same form. And all applicants will receive a confirmation email once we've received your form. So if you don't receive that email, you might want to get in touch. Further information on this process is available on the Future Students website, and there are also staff available to assist where possible. So scholarships is the next thing I'd like to talk about tonight, and this next slide has a bit of information. So the University of Melbourne Scholarship Program is one of the most generous and comprehensive in Australia. In 2014, there are over 320 living allowance or stipend scholarships that were available for international students. The living allowance rate for 2014 is just over $25,000 per annum, and fee remission of international fees is normally awarded in conjunction with the living allowance. In addition to this, there are generous scholarship benefits available which may vary depending on the scholarship that you receive, but can include things like paid leave for illness, maternity, parenting leave and overseas health cover. As well as the central scholarships that are on offer, many faculties, graduate schools and departments offer scholarships as well. So it's important to jump on the websites to see what's available. Melbourne also welcomes applications from students applying through overseas scholarship schemes such as the China Scholarships Council. So please visit the Melbourne Scholarships website or the faculty and Jason websites for further information on funding opportunities, because there are a good number out there. So we're going to come back now. You'll be able to see us in a moment. So again, I'd just like to turn the session over to our PhD students. I'll just introduce you a little bit better to them now. So we've got Daniela, who is a PhD candidate in the Language and Linguistics School and looking into the linguistics area in her research. And then we have Amir, who is a PhD candidate. He's nearly finished his PhD, so he probably looks a little bit more relaxed than Daniela. And he's in the electrical and electronic department, and the area he's researching is control. So thank you both for joining me today, tonight, or in the morning, depending on where you are. So Amir, I might start with you.
Yep.
Can you just tell me a little bit about how the application process was for you, and whether you applied when you were in Australia or whether you were not in Australia, and yeah, talk a little bit about that for me.
Okay, thanks. Basically, I applied when I was outside Australia, and the application process then was paper-based, which I guess now it's an online application.
Yes.
So the first step that I took was to contact the supervisor, and then the next step we took was to write a proposal. And the way I found the supervisor was I was working in a field in my master's, which was very close to the area of research of my prospective supervisor. So we talked about that, and he proposed a project to me. I took it on, wrote a proposal, and then I made an application to the university for admission, which I got very quickly.
Fantastic.
And then I applied for the scholarship, but because I missed one of my documents at the time, I missed a scholarship round. But it happens that the university has different scholarship rounds, multiple scholarship rounds in a year. So then it was just a bit delay for me to get to the next scholarship now.
Fantastic. That's really important. Dates are really important, and getting documents together in time. But as you've just heard, missing a deadline for a scholarship round doesn't mean that it's the end, and you will be considered a different scholarship round.
Yeah.
So thanks for that piece of information. Daniela, can you tell us a bit about your experience with the application process?
Well, I did my undergraduate degree in Australia as well, so I was at a different university, but in Australia. So I did my honours year there, and because the honours year already, at least at my university, was 50% research, which you obviously have to present. I already knew quite a few researchers, at least in Melbourne. We had a research institute, and they had visiting scholars from all over Australia and overseas. And so I pretty much knew most people beforehand. And when I applied, it was paper-based, but it was, I just went to the admissions office and handed in my papers. Very satisfying after gathering all the documents. But yeah, so I found it really, really helpful to put the names of potential supervisors on the application already, because when I applied, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work with endangered languages, but I had no idea which language. There's so many out there. And so I just wrote roughly, this is what I want to do. I'm not quite sure where, but this is what I want to do. But because I already had supervisors who knew that this is the normal way to go about doing, or starting research, my application was accepted fairly early on because it didn't have to go through the whole system, but went straight to my supervisors who could just sign off on it and send it back. So that I found facilitated the whole application process, getting in touch beforehand, and of course gathering all applications are due in August, I think. Correct. For international students. Yes. And at least I was still in the middle of writing my thesis for my honours degree, but so it's really, really important, especially if you're still doing your degree, the other degree. Yes. That you start in time and make sure you know exactly what documents you'll need and what the requirements are.
That's good advice. And you'll hear then so that both of our special guests came from different avenues. One had completed an honours program and one had completed a master's program. So that's good to know that there are different ways of being able to approach a PhD or a master's. So tell us a little bit, Daniela, perhaps you can start this time, about the scholarship you received and what it includes.
So I have 2 scholarships. I have the MIRS, which is the Melbourne International Research Scholarship, the living allowance that you talked about earlier. And as you also said, that comes with the Fear Emission Scholarship, which is the MIFRS, I think. I keep
Lots
getting confused.
Lots of acronyms here at the university.
Yeah, but that one is pretty much always awarded when you get the living allowance. So it's highly unlikely that you'll get one but not the other. I'm also fortunate enough to work on a project which has an external grant, so I get a bit of money from that as well. It covers living costs and the fees.
Great. Amita, did you want to add anything further to that?
So I started also with a MIFRS, which is a Field Emission Scholarship, and MIRS, which is a stipend. And 2 months into my research, I changed into an APAI, which is an Australian Postgraduate Award International. And basically that was linked to a grant that my supervisor was doing a project about at the time. Pretty much the APAI covers your living costs. It also covers a thesis allowance at the end when you want to actually bind your thesis, and it covers all those costs as well. As well as, so the MIRS covers a relocation allowance for you.
Oh, fantastic.
So basically I was very fortunate to get both of these.
That sounds excellent. Hopefully some of you out there will receive these also.
Yeah, so it is very, very generous, as you said, and you can have savings too. It's not just, doesn't go end to end. So,
that's good to know. Yeah. That's good.
But I think it actually, there's ways to apply for like thesis allowance kind of money from the university as well.
Yeah, so I think MIRS comes with a thesis allowance as well as the APAI. Yeah.
Oh, well, always opportunities to learn. Yeah. Well, that leads nicely into the next question, which is about support services and professional development opportunities that the university here offers research students and international students. So would either of you like to start on telling me and our audience tonight which support services that you've taken advantage of, if any?
Okay, so I'll just split it into 2 parts, academic and non-academic.
Perfect.
So in the academic part, there are actually tons of services you can actually use. There are upskills.
Yes.
There are sessions that you can go to, which I actually went to get a bit more familiar with the structure of a research program. Literature surveys, you can learn about confirmation or conversion processes. There are mini courses that you can do. The other one, it was about tutor development program, which actually I think as of now it's changed into a more comprehensive program where you can do proper course on how to become a more effective tutor. Which will help you if you want to carry on as an academic later on.
Okay.
I participated in a 3-minute thesis.
Oh, yes.
I did that, and it was very rewarding.
Do you want to tell the audience a bit about what that is?
Well, it's basically you have to present your ideas in 3 minutes only to a non-specialized audience. which makes it pretty difficult to do.
Mm.
And you have to have a nice introduction, tell the audience what you're doing, and everything. So you have to make connections with your research to everyday life, maybe. And that's not always easy, especially when you're doing engineering.
Yes, I think it would be difficult. 80,000 to 100,000 words about control in engineering
Mathematics.
in 3 minutes.
Try
3
an
minutes.
arts degree for that.
Yeah,
Or
that can be.
what was yours? Languages that are in
Language documentation.
Yes,
I work
goodness.
in Borneo and I document an endangered language. So
So did your PhD take you to Borneo? Do you
Yeah.
want to tell us a little bit about that?
well, I'm doing a fieldwork-based PhD, so I have to go and, or I'm fortunate to go and work amongst indigenous tribes in Borneo.
Oh, fantastic.
So I stay with them, and it's immersion fieldwork. So I'll live with them and document what they do, and I have sessions with them. They translate things for me, and I record their ceremonies. And
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, it's
So actually, I should recall that somebody working in a similar field won the 3MT. I think 2
she's in
years
my
ago.
lab actually.
Yeah.
Yes,
Won the 3MT. Yeah, Sarah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I am familiar with the 3-minute thesis. I watched it online. I watched the final. It was a fantastic way of hearing about the amazing research that's taking place here at the university in a short amount of time,
Yeah.
in a way that someone who's never studied that area can understand it. So it's a great resource here.
And there's also non-academic. It was
Yes, please.
So it's you can go to counselors in the university for your visa, for your housing,
Great.
for different facilities that they can make up for you, and also you can join clubs. I'm a tennis club member.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and I sometimes go to the gym. Yeah, so.
The services in the sporting clubs here are fantastic. I also use the gym at the University of Melbourne, and I think it's a fantastic place.
Yeah, I go there too.
So, can you please tell me, Daniela, about what would a typical day look like for you? How can you explain to our audience what's the environment like, and what's the working relationship that you have with your supervisor? How does that work?
Well, I go to uni in the morning. I have my own desk. So as I mentioned before, I work in a lab with a few people who work in a similar field. And what do I do on a typical day? Well, I do work at university as well, so it might be slightly different
Oh, that's
from
okay.
someone else's day, but maybe to just skip to the supervisor question, I have 3 supervisors, one of whom is overseas at the moment. I talk to the ones that are actually here maybe once a week. I see them quite frequently, and we have regular meetings, maybe once every month at least.
Okay.
If possible, all my supervisors are there, but yeah, as I said, one of them is overseas at the moment. I'm very happy with my supervision. They're very dedicated to helping me achieve the best possible outcome for my research, and very supportive. I had a family incident fairly recently, and I had to leave the country for a while, and they were incredibly supportive even outside of academia. They were helping me out, and they were there, and we kept in touch just to see, okay, when are you going to be back? No rush, but just so we can organize your next meeting and the milestones, so the 6 months meeting, and then I'm about to prepare for my confirmation, so I'm emailing them every week, and they're just like, calm down, this is what you have to do.
Oh,
So
good.
they're very accommodating.
Happy to hear that they're accommodating. Did you have a different experience being from a PhD in a more technical area of engineering in comparison to something in the humanities or social sciences?
I think the core of it is the same. I think the core is the same. I usually come to university also in the morning.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I'm not going to say what time though.
Sometimes maybe not not as early as others.
Yeah,
I mean, a
sometimes.
lot of people work from home
Yeah.
as well if they live further away.
That's good. There's flexibility, which is good to hear.
Yeah. So I start off with answering some emails, correspondence, admin work. Then I go into some reading about my subject, broader subject, or about the problem that I'm doing. Then I'll do some coding, and I do some writing of the, be it thesis or papers. In the past, I used to do teaching and taking courses as well, and I also coordinated a workshop. So it can be pretty busy.
Yes,
It can be
sounds very busy.
pretty busy. Yeah.
I mean, as an art student, you have to do coursework as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we should add. It's
good.
it's actually during the first 9 months before confirmation. It does take up quite a bit of your time to just do the coursework.
How many subjects of coursework are required?
3. So there's one research workshop, which one runs for an entire year, and then it's 2 electives.
Fantastic.
So there's a list that you can choose from, whatever you like to do.
Great.
You could choose the workshop as well, but there's usually only one that's relevant to your thesis topic. So, and yeah.
It's very similar to electrical. You have to take 4 subjects
Yes.
now, and then you 2 of them have to be advanced study subjects. So those are very, very specialized subjects. Everybody has to. Before conversion, that was actually the case.
Okay.
Before.
Well, that leads us nicely into some questions, and I can see that we're getting some questions here from you out in the wide web out there. So I can see one here from someone called Kimran. Thank you, Kimran, for your question, and it's a good one. You wanted to know, what is a GPA? There are lots of acronyms that are used here at the University of Melbourne. A GPA is your grade point average. So the GPA is calculated in different ways depending on how many years you've studied before you come to complete a research program. And it's the grade point average. So some universities have percentages out of 100. Other universities have a scale out of 4 or out of 5. But there are other universities around the world that have scales out of 10 or 20. The admissions team at the university is very, very familiar with a number of institutions all over the world because of the vast number of students we have here, and they'll be able to work out your GPA or grade point average as a result. So thanks for that question. And actually, one of you mentioned talking about confirmation as a process. So one of the questions here is, how did you find the confirmation process at Melbourne? So does anyone, who wants to take that one?
I've done confirmation.
Yeah.
So basically.
Maybe explain a little bit about what that means. And
Yeah.
how you
Okay.
found
So
it.
there's 2 things: confirmation or conversion. Well, it will depend on how you start your PhD candidature. If you start as a PhD student, you do a confirmation. Whereas if you start as an MPhil student, you have to convert to a PhD candidate.
Oh, okay.
So that's, first of all, that's a difference. For confirmation, basically, you have to meet up with your supervisor, write a report, maybe do a presentation, and then get feedback.
Okay.
And then once that's done, you are confirmed as a PhD student, which you started as a PhD student. But in conversion, there's a bit more bureaucratic stuff to do. But the process is exactly the same. So you have to present and then do a report, and then it will be marked by or looked at by your supervisors, and then you can go through to a PhD program.
Fabulous. Did you want to add anything to that, Daniela?
Well, you actually have a committee for the confirmation, so that's not just your supervisors, it's also one person who's the chair of your committee, who has nothing to do with your research, who's at your school doing something unrelated to your research.
Okay.
So it's not just the supervisors looking at it, it's one of the major milestones, or the first, and possibly one of the most difficult, given that it is the first. You have at first no idea what's happening. But the supervisors, at least in my experience, they really guide you through the process, and they make sure that you're on track for confirmation. At my school, we have a compulsory 6 months meeting.
Okay.
So once you're at 6 months, you have a meeting with the entire committee, and you tell them, okay, this is what I have done, this is what I want to present, and you talk about what you're going to present and what you're going to put in the document, and they pretty much tell you, okay, either this might not be enough, you need to, work on this a little bit more, or they tell you, oh, this looks good. So it's not like you get there and, all of a sudden they tell you, no, you're actually not good enough, or like it's not going to be a nasty surprise.
That's good.
You're prepared.
You're prepared. That's good to know. We've just got another question that's come through, which is a little less relevant, but I'll mention. It's asking about whether there's scholarships regarding sports and athletics. Not for PhD candidature. There might be some scholarships available for students if you're a really fantastic athlete, but not for entry into the university, I'm sorry. Now, there was another question that we had here before we wrap up, and it was around what the timing of the application and the scholarship. So did either of you want to talk a little bit about how, at what point did the scholarship kick in once you've started? It's pretty immediate, but I just, in case anybody's worried about, so the scholarship, you're told about it before you come or before you start. I think they might be a bit worried about the timing of it. Is there anything to be fearful of in terms of payments?
Not really. I mean, they paid fortnightly, so every other week on a Thursday, and so it really depends on when you start. So I mean, if your commencement date happens to be in a week where there's no scholarship, then you'll have to miss out on 1 week. But I mean, that's totally doable. So if you will have to tell the university your commencement date well in advance, and after that you'll be in the next round straight away.
Fabulous. Well, I've just looked at the time and we're out of time tonight. I'd like to say thank you very much to the two of you for joining me and for sharing your experiences. It's been fantastic, and I hope that everybody has enjoyed what we've seen tonight. The next presentation coming up is on the undergraduate experience, so please stay tuned if that's something that you're interested in, and we'll be online to do some chatting as well. So thanks and good night.